Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. I have here Lauren Hackney. In the same tumultuous year that the pandemic halted Lauren's thriving aviation career, she faced the harrowing experience of her husband being diagnosed with heart failure, bringing him to the brink of life. With a 2-decade-long relationship at stake and the daunting challenge of being 39 without a degree, she found resilience in an unexpected place: storytelling. Together with her children, they penned, illustrated, and published their cherished family bedtime tale. What began as a means to cope with the enormity of their circumstances transformed into a heartwarming venture. Evenings, once filled with uncertainty, became collaborative sessions at the dinner table, fun-filled homemade ad filmings, and inspiring school visits. While their venture may be modest in scale, its impact is profound. Through their books, she and her children have discovered the unparalleled joy of bringing laughter and smiles to young readers. For them, it's a testament to the power of looking forward and cherishing the present rather than ensnared by the past. Thank you so much, Lauren, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Gina. This is really exciting.
I'm excited too because I was just talking with you and we're talking about children and just our experiences in life. But can you just take us back to a moment you decided to turn storytelling as a form of healing and distraction, and what sparked that idea?
Yeah, happily. So I was in the same company for 16 years and I was really happy. Like I got so how I got this job was I walked into a job agency with the skills I had at the time and I applied for this particular job. I went for an interview and I got it. And then I moved around within that company and it was travel, it was an airline. And I did all sorts of different things. Like I worked firstly as like a travel consultant, like making bookings for people, but then I was in the airport environment where I would work airside. I would drive bridges into aircraft and dock them and open doors and like do marshalling on the ramp. And it was wild because I did so many different areas. It was like I felt like I had a lot of skills under my belt. But then when March 2020 came and my skills weren't very transferable because other companies that have aircraft doors weren't operating. And I had no reason, like, because I was really happy. I was really happy in my role. I had no reason to go to TAFE or university and upskill or change because that was never on my radar. March 2020 came and I had two young children. At the time, I was 38. No one could leave their house. I didn't know how to apply for a job, like an alternative. Um, yeah, like those job agencies from the new millennium were no longer. Zoom was a thing. This internet site called LinkedIn for business people was a thing. Um, I didn't know any of it, and I was scared. I was scared, and I had kids to feed, bills to pay, mortgage to pay, and I didn't know what to do. I ended up with some of the skills I did have because I've had first aid certificate and all this. I ended up getting a role as a home care person, helping people in their own homes, which was a good alternative, but I wasn't I wasn't making ends meet for a while. My husband, he was, keeping us afloat. He was so amazing and supportive. And so this was happening for quite a long time, like quite a few months. And when things started to open up a little bit, right? Like borders were still shut, international travel was still cactus. Do you know what cactus means? That's Australian.
Oh, it's a cactus. I was trying to just think about that word. I'm like, what does that mean? Yeah, because that's cute. Because I know you're in all the way in Australia. A different
um,
terminology.
yeah, well, it international travel wasn't happening. It was kaput. Um, well, so to take our family on like a little budget holiday, friends of ours, we all kind of went, right, let's go camping. And this was like months down the track. You know how it took a while for the pandemic to start settling where we could, travel within our area? Um, so we went camping with our kids for the first time for in a long time. And it was really interesting because this is the pivotal moment things changed. And looking back, I didn't realize how pivotal it was. So it rained. It rained heavily, like hours on end. This first night we were there, my tent flooded, other people's tents flooded. It was chaos. There was about 6 families. We all had children. No one knew kind of what to do. Everyone was getting, what's rowdy, kind of like the kids were unsettled. And I thought, right, I've got this bedtime story that my children and I created, just like any other parent, right? Like that's nothing special. Everyone does that. So I gather all the kids around the tarp and we tell the story about this magical lolly shop. Now, my boys in the story own the magical lolly shop. They make all the lollies in the lolly shop. They choose which ones are strawberry flavored, which ones are grape, which ones are chocolate, which ones are sherbet. Then they choose what magic. Do you want to fly? Do you want to swim under the water? Do you want to teleport? Like all this. But so I did it with the kids, and one by one, they all took turns choosing colors and flavors and powers, and then what they would do with the power. And before you knew it, like a good hour had passed. The kids were all having a good time. The upliftingness of it all kind of made it fun. I thought nothing of it. We all kind of went to bed. I had to sleep in the car because our tent was flooded. And my children and husband had to find other places to sleep. But the next night, it was a starry night. It was gorgeous. Campfires were going. And what did all the kids want? They wanted the story again. And every night for a week, not just our kids, but some of the neighboring kids wanted to come and join in on the fun. And we'd get so carried away some nights that other parents were like, "You're going to wrap this up, champ. It's bedtime. Come on." And I thought nothing of it. It wasn't until we were driving home and all my girlfriends said, I don't know why you chose aviation. Like we know why you chose aviation. You're a fun person, but you need to write this story. Like you're so good with kids. The kids were wanting this story. Like you need to write it. And I went, yeah, I'll think about that. But I got bills to pay. And at that time, because the home care work was casual work, it wasn't concrete full-time work. I had to work every day. Like for oh gosh, well over a year. I never took time off because I couldn't afford to. I didn't think to write this story. Um, and so again, we're going on probably almost a year. It looked like the domestic aviation world was well and truly coming back. It looked like there was hints of international, and then boom, another lockdown happened. Like again, like no airline work, nothing. And I thought, oh gosh, I got so sad because in my old life before the pandemic, it was fun. Like I looked forward to going to work. I was that person who you could tell I loved my job because at barbecues and soccer training or anything, I would talk about my job, and it's exciting because people go to so many excellent places and amazing places, and you can help people. Like like we had like Make-A-Wish kids come in. Like you guys know what Make-A-Wish is, right?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah, that's so
yeah,
awesome.
right. Like that's fun, right? And so I was looking forward to going back and helping people and asking people, and where are you going today? Where in the world are you going? Like pick a place. Well, no. So lockdown happened again, and I got sad because I was not only exhausted, like all of my aviation friends who were in the same boat. We were all tired. We wanted to go back to regular life where there was annual leave and all this kind of stuff available, right? Um, and so one of my work friends she's a very uplifting person in her own right. She sort of said to me, right, well, if you could do anything, what would you do? And I went, well, with this lockdown, I have this idea that I could write my children's bedtime story. Like everyone does bedtime stories with their kids. So I thought it wouldn't be anything too out there, you know. But I said, right, I think I'm going to use this time because it's not looking like our old lives are coming back anytime soon. So I might just focus on writing it. So I changed my focus, I changed my thoughts, and I changed how I was going to go about it. And I used this like it was my last chance to fulfill something, right? Because
Mhm.
the pandemic went from March 2020, all travel gone, to 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, hints of it coming back. So I kind of went, right, this could be the last time that this is happening for me to take this chance.
Mhm.
So I changed my focus and went, right, I'm going to set my alarm 2 o'clock in the morning, like I would as if I was going to work. I would write like bits of the story together. And then I would, about, 5:30 when my kids would get up, we would then start our day like normal. And because lockdown happened where it took away the soccer training, the mixed martial arts training, the homework, the pickup from school, it took away all that. I had time of a night when my husband went to work to sit at the table with my kids and go, hey, let's do this. Let's write this story. And look, my kids at the time were like 6 and 8. So the attention span I got out of my youngest, I reckon I got 25 minutes before he's like, I hear the Lego calling. Um, and my eldest he was really loving mainly drawing characters. Like, can I show you the book? Can I
Yes, please do. Absolutely.
look?
It's so
Um,
I love it.
yeah,
It's so
like my eldest drew this guy here,
cute. Wow. So
and he drew
talented.
he oh well, all kids do it. So like they've got their little characters. I should have bookmarked this.
It's okay, don't worry. I can I can always pause. I mean, not pause. I mean, I can always edit. It's okay.
Well, like look, like just little stuff, right? So
Yeah.
we use that time, me and my boys at the dining room table, going, let's give this character a name. Let's give this character like the role of trying out this particular candy that makes them invisible. What mischief is this child going to do? And like, oh, oh gosh, it was it was a beautiful time. Like everything was starting to look up. Like we we ended up, so I nights at the dining room table illustrating and piecing it together and picking names and all that creative stuff. It was so much fun. We created a manuscript. We had no publisher interested. And that's okay because I'll explain later
Yeah.
with when things happen for a reason
Mhm.
that I'm glad at this point looking back at it all that it didn't happen the way I thought it would, right?
Right, right.
So got nothing, didn't get any answers, didn't get it published. So I decided to self-publish it. Like I found people who could help me do that. Um, I ended up just locally stocking the books at a particular bookshop. This bookshop is so supportive of creativity on all levels, right? Like there was another bookshop in the local area who wasn't really big on self-published books. They like, and that's fine. It's just not. It wasn't for that bookshop, but this other one loved it. She loved where it came from. She loved the way it was created. She read it herself and she went, "Oh, I like it. I really like it." And so she sells it and she promotes it. And so things were looking up. We got to go to local schools and just spread the power of storytelling because at this point I focused heavily on that. It gave me that good feeling of good feeling of expression, creativity, all those things I used to look for in my old role were somehow translated into what we were doing. So it was giving me that kind of rush again, and my kids were loving it too, because they would hear other local kids say, "Oh, I want to play lolly shop in my lunch break," like, which was awesome. So at this point, things were really looking up. Um, and then things went pear-shaped real quick. Like, if I didn't think the pandemic could take everything away from me, my husband becoming really ill did.
Mhm.
Like, I thought navigating a new way of finding a job and not earning enough money and all this kind of and not having job satisfaction, like missing my old job, all those feelings I thought were really tough.
Mhm.
But my husband almost died of a heart attack. And that changed everything. That changed everything. And the thing was, we've been down this road before. So he had his first one when he was 32. So we knew he had to look after himself. But this one particular night, he went off to soccer training. So at the time he was 41, and we're talking a really healthy person, right? Like,
Mhm.
he looks after himself. He was running half marathons. He played soccer at least 2-3 times a week. Um, and like our garage is like almost a full gym. He sails boats, super fit and healthy. So this particular night, his teammates on the pitch didn't know what was happening because it wasn't a movie scene.
Mhm.
Like, you know how we all watch those movie scenes where,
Yes.
they all do this?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
um,
wow.
so yeah, get him home, and I'm like, oh God, no, he needs an ambulance. And then it was all on. It was all on, like nothing I'd ever seen. Like, I worked at an airport. I've seen heart attacks before, but
Mhm.
it's different when it's someone you love so much.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and he's like no one I've ever met. He is the most inspirational person too.
Mhm.
I'm going to get emotional right now.
It's okay, get emotional. I've been crying lately too.
Oh, well, out of everyone, I can't lose him. Like,
Right.
he's a person who he's amazingly goal orientated himself. And we were talking about this recently, where it's like he's obsessed with life improvement.
Mhm.
Like, he loves experiencing life. So that night he went off in an ambulance, and I didn't know if he was coming home. And I
Mm.
had my kids home, and I didn't know, what do you say? What do you say to your kids? Like,
I know.
anyway. So the next morning, get up to the hospital, because this all at the time, by the time the ambulance came and stuff, it was 10:30 at night. So the ambulance just said, don't Forrest, don't, just you stay here with the kids and we'll keep you informed. We'll take him to
Mhm.
emergency. We'll let you know what's happening. And he was in theatre that night. And I was in the ward the next day, like, feeling like, I've been to hospitals before for lots of reasons, right? But this was new. And this was like the wind was knocked out of me, because I didn't know what I was going to say to anyone, and I didn't know if he was going to be there. And anyway, um, he was the youngest in the ward by far. Like, you know, thank God he survived. Yes.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yes. And like, so he was, 12 tubes coming off him, and on, all sorts. In hospital, when they make you get up and go for a walk, he was doing his little lap around the ward like you do, attached to all the things. He was like the youngest.
Mhm.
Like, there was no one in that ward I could relate to except for the young medical staff. That was it. And, he was in there for he was in there for a different reason to some of the other people, right? Like, it wasn't, it was from bad genetics,
Mhm.
really, like
Mhm.
that he was there. And so get him home, and we're recovering. And uh, just when we thought we were out of the woods, he had a very minor heart attack where it was actually his sports watch that saved him. And this was when he was diagnosed with heart failure. So he couldn't really feel it, but he had the nausea, he had the sweating, he had all the symptoms. He couldn't feel what was happening in his chest cavity.
Mm-hmm.
I was an absolute mess for a long time. And the Lolly Shop book was kind of put on pause. I just needed to get my head around this until talking to one of my girlfriends, and she said, "Oh, why don't you write about that? Like, I know you like writing your children's story. Why don't you write about that? That's an interesting story in itself."
Yes.
And so I did. And I've heard from other people like along this journey, because whenever you take a chance, things will happen in a way you don't realize. Like you'll
Right.
meet people, or someone's got an opinion you just don't see coming. Like, again, one of my closest friends said there's this thing called journaling, and I do it where I write down all my thoughts. But she's like, why don't you do this with what happened to him? And so I did. And I put it out on, I wrote a very, like a short story, right? And I put it on Kindle because I was like, I kind of thought, I'm not an author. Like, even though we've written a book, I don't associate being an author. I just kind of go, not me. But I got constant 5-star reviews, but not just from like, just not from the lovely people who buy it and support you, but I got
Mm.
5-star reviews from people in the UK and New Zealand and the US who had bought my book. And again, I'm like, what? So yeah, again, and so my gorgeous man, he's like, honey, the way you're telling our story, like I really want to tell you it, but it's going to give away. Can I tell you it?
Yeah.
Uh,
You can tell
Um,
me anything, whatever. This is your podcast.
Lauren Unleashed.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, thank you for the title.
um, well, okay, so I I'm telling it from when I tell the story, it's told from like a female's perspective, like intuition. And people, because I talk about,
Yes.
being guided and intuition and the angel who lives in our house, and the energy shift in all that.
Yeah.
But the reveal at the end is the angel is actually our family dog, because we end up getting a dog 2 weeks after he came home, because everyone came to visit. Everyone then had to hear like how he almost died, because he honestly had a 50-50 chance of coming home that night. And guess who was the audience? My children. All my
Mhm.
children heard, whether because we live in a very small house, and I can hear my neighbors in the kitchen. Like, they would go outside and they would still hear the conversation. They would see me sobbing. Like, we end up
Mm.
getting a dog for a distraction. Oh my gosh, the power of dogs is amazing. She's healed our family. So my story that I talk about is a perspective of a woman feeling like house, like she's got this angel, but the reveal is at the end it's the dog. And so after having like that book come out, and after with the lolly shop, after sort of getting my head around hubby being well and us
Mm.
having a plan and us knowing how to keep him healthy, and us like he eventually needs big surgery, sure, but
Mhm.
at this point it all kind of like plateaued. Like, he was home, we knew what we could eat, what we couldn't eat, all the medications, we had all the machines at home. Like, I felt, okay, right, I'm getting my head around this again. Cool. Um, so Lolly Shop book was back on track. I had this new little short story that was doing really well, unbeknownst to me. I then started going, okay, I'm climbing a mountain right now. I'm looking back at my view and I'm seeing how this is all playing out. And I'm glad I didn't get that publishing contract, because there's no way I could focus on working with that and working with the home stuff. So it's like how it's all played out, just like it wouldn't have played out that way if it went the way I would try to control, like tried to control it happening, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
So my message to a lot of people is redefine how you think it's going to work out, because I honestly just thought, oh, I'm going to write a story and I'm going to send it to a publisher. And because all the people I know love it, it's going to get picked up. No, that didn't happen. But if I look back, thank God it didn't, because I couldn't have committed. I couldn't,
Right.
like, I'd be letting a lot of publishing people down because what happened to Jeff was so massive, right? But what did come out of that is I've been touching base with lots of authors. I've been interviewing them. I've been sharing their knowledge. I have been, I've been talking to publishers about, okay, well, how do you get here and how do you get there? And I feel the way I'm going about it now is so suitable to our situation. So climbing your mountain, yes, you might stumble across rocks and trees and you might come to close to cliff edges and you know, but when you get to your top of your mountain and you look back and you go, right, that view, I can see why it's all played out that way. So
Hmm.
good things can come out of really crappy situations for sure.
Wow. Yes. Oh my goodness. Your story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it warms my heart that you're at where you're at from where you've been to where you're at now. I mean, and it is within only a short amount of time too. It wasn't too long ago that we were in lockdown, right? It's like
Yeah, yeah,
so
and
much
it's
you've
like,
accomplished.
yeah, it's wild how, and this is what I'm trying to I guess my message, and I I hope people do listen to my very small story, because I know people going through worse. I'm not trying to say I've got the worst situation. I'm not, but I found something from a situation which can happen, because it's hard. It's really hard to find the good in bad.
Yes, it's so funny. Yesterday, literally, we were doing like family prayer. And so we were praying, and then I was saying, God, thank you so much for the good and the bad. And the bad,
Yeah.
I say thank you for
Yes.
the bad. Because it is we're supposed to go to that bad in order for us then to see the light. So that dark
Yeah.
to the light. And it grows us more
Yes.
as a character, it grows us more as a human being, as a mother, as a wife. It just helps us grow as just a person. And then we accept and start embracing everything. I always say there's two things that make happiness is well, maybe just one is being okay to go through everything, to be okay to go through everything. Once you're okay, and you know what, we all are okay, because we have to think back about when was the hardest time in our life in our past. I know we don't like to think about our past, but sometimes it does come up. And then think about how you thought you were never going to get out of that situation, how you never thought that you were going to go ahead and break through, but yet you still did.
Yeah.
You still
Yeah.
did. And that's the spirit. That's our spirit within us. And I really think that once people have that in their head, like, hey, this situation that I'm going through, I know I'm going to be okay. It's that mindset you have and that vibration and frequency that you carry for yourself that will then pass on to others. And then hopefully others can can see you, for example, and say, and they can see them then themselves. It's a reflection of themselves. And then they're like, oh, wow, and then that's where all the attraction that we're talking about and all the collective and everything. And eventually, hopefully, it's going to be like that on Earth. But it takes
Yeah. Because,
time though.
oh, it does. And it's having faith, because it took a long time for me to realize I have survived 100. I've got a 100% success rate of surviving every bad day I've ever had, right? Like I'm still here. And it's when I look back, I focus on, like, I don't want to remember those times where I would I remember this one particular day I was at home care, and there was this elderly couple who lived in a pretty wealthy suburb in Brisbane, right? And their children were in another state of Australia, and they just wanted to hire someone to go to their house just to make sure, because they, like, no, they couldn't come and visit, right? And I remember one day feeling so low because they were elderly. They had accidents and things I had to take care of. And I just remember feeling, oh my gosh, like, how did I get to this point? I felt I felt like this was my fault, even though the lockdown wasn't my fault. But I kept thinking, okay, Lauren, you should have been an accountant or a teacher or something, because look where you are now. You're cleaning human mess off sheets. And I just remember getting really sad. But I don't remember those times now. I now remember those times of me coming home to my kids of a night, putting together our story, laughing with them, creating a book. I want to look back and remember that. I don't want to remember those times I felt inadequate or I felt like I was failing my family. Like, that's a really crappy way to think. So it was almost like the distraction, just that distraction meant everything. Because if I didn't do that, if I didn't become, I still don't see myself as an author. But if I didn't do that, I would be looking back going, God, that was a low point where I felt like I was failing my family. I don't want to hold on to that.
Oh,
No.
and you so were not, you humbled yourself. This is actually something that's magnificent as the spirit. You actually, from aviation, then you humbled yourself and you were actually caring for somebody else. The acts of service, even though, there's some form of money that comes through, you're still acting of the service. And elderly people need that too. And it's like you're like helping both my favorite people, the elderly and the children. Those are like my favorite people. I love the elderly because they're just so wise, first off, and then they're just, I don't know, and then the children because they're just so vibrant and their energy and they're just so pure and loving, and you just want to pinch their cheeks and give them kisses. They're so cute.
Yeah, you want to do that, but you can't do that when you're in a classroom.
Oh no, I know. Yeah, right.
I
I
have to
know.
restrain myself.
That's right. So how is that with you going to schools and then you're doing the storytelling? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, the storytelling is powerful. And this is what I want to focus. Yes, reading matters. Yes, it does. But your imagination matters more. And like, you get kids in the classroom who are automatically there if they're reluctant readers or they don't feel they're up to scratch with, the kids at the smart tables, or like, they automatically don't realize the power of story is huge. So I noticed this when I first was going to classrooms where you'd get the kids listening to your book and you give them inspiration by going, hey, if I can do this, you can do this. But then you start telling them the story and suddenly they just forget about the troubles of their day. And this is why books are important. Well, for me, books are important. And so I want to tell kids, look, fine, you may not be the quickest reader. Fine, you might need help. Fine, it may not be your strong suit. But the story, if it makes you laugh, if it makes you think, if it makes you question, win, win, win. And I'm not a teacher, I'm not a qualified teacher. I just worked this out while I was engaging with children. And as I was telling them our story of, okay, well, what's your favorite lolly? And what favorite flavor? What's your favorite color? And and what's your favorite magic out of all these powers in the book? What would you do? And you'd point to them, and before you know it, the whole class are engaged and they're laughing and their smiles are getting nice and big and bright. And they might have had they might have had a crappy morning themselves where, they might have got yelled at because they didn't pack their school bag on time, or they might have missed the bus, or they might have tripped on their way to school, or they might be, I don't know, name the list. They're endless,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But you then get them on a story which just distracts them, and their imagination is just going crazy and they're smiling. You want to point out to the kids that books are important for that reason.
Mhm.
You don't have to be getting gold stars for your, you know, quality of reading or whatever. Books can books can change your life, even at a
Absolutely.
young age.
Oh, yes. And the imagination. I'm so glad you brought up that because even as adults, we've lost our imagination.
Oh God, yes.
I am just revisiting, learning more about my consciousness and going into the spiritual realm, leaving here the three-dimensional realm and going into the spiritual realm, where I think maybe I can even be in the 12th dimension if I wanted to. But it's so important to have that imagination. And then it starts with the children. And books are so important because they put themselves as that character and they're reliving it and they're thinking and they're loving it and they feel it too, because if
Yeah.
I can feel it now as an adult, going back to my childhood, I don't really remember too much, but I'm sure I've had like my story reading times in my classroom where I'm just like, yeah. We would take visits to the library and there would be like someone reading some stories and we would check out some books, but none of them were like yours. It was
And it's
very
funny you
cute.
say that because I agree with the being an adult, forgetting to have an imagination. Because prior to COVID, and you would agree, right, Gina? You're a parent, so
Yes.
you get home from your work, right? And then it's homework, it's sports, it's packing lunches, it's laundry, it's making sure the house is like clean enough. Like it's never going to be clean enough. You got kids, but it's got to be in a hygienic state, right? I could think of prior to COVID, right? A million things to do at night other than imagine.
Hmm.
I could. And adults, we all do it. So it's, again, looking back, this has played out that it's just kickstarted something for me as a person that I want to hold on to. I want to keep chasing it. And I urge others, what's in your imagination?
Hmm. Yeah, dream big, like dream big. And don't think, and then your mind will be like, oh, you can't do that. No, 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 don't listen to that part. Just be your authentic self and dream big if that means, you know, living in a different country where you thought you would never be able to travel because you never traveled in at all. Still think that, because the more you think it and the more you feel it, the more then it will actually come true. So imagination is very big because that's what starts the manifestation. I think we have to imagine it and envision it and feel it and just then embrace it.
Yep, and so, talking about energy, you are so right because if you're surrounded with people the same energy, because don't get me wrong, and I'm in my 40s, right? So I have had a rainbow of people in my life. I've had the people with the energy of, oh God, why would you do that? Oh God, what is she doing again? Oh, what's she trying to be now? Or why would you bother doing that? That
Mm-hmm.
energy, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I have so much of the other energy where I'm surrounded by cheerleaders, right? Yes, you should have done this. Why didn't you do this ages ago? I'm so supportive of you. Like that's also important as an adult, is who is feeding you energy, right? Because
Yes.
this could have easily been stomped on if I let people stomp on it. But I've got the other spectrum of it where my man, oh my God, he's my biggest cheerleader. He's going to keep me going for ages. I've got to keep him alive. That's the only thing. But all my friends and stuff, like my circle is all that positive energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally am on the same page there.
Yes, they say your five friends, you will become the average of those five friends, whatever five friends you have. So really evaluate your friends and whatever your friends' actions are, is that aligned to what you want to do in the future for yourself, the goals that you set? You have to really think about it. And then if it's a no, then maybe starts doing some self-evaluation and then slowly, separate yourself. And it's not going to be like overnight because they're going to be like, well, da 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 da. But it will happen naturally because you will start attracting people that are more aligned to you.
Yeah, 100%. Because it's like a radio station, isn't it? Like if you're listening to classical, or if you're on a classical radio station and what you really want is punk rock, it's not just going to change because you want it to change. Like you've kind of got to find that dial, just like you've got to find those people. And
Mhm.
you do, because since becoming, oh gosh, an author, I still can't believe I'm calling myself that.
You are an
Um,
author.
but I have attracted like so many people. I had I had Jonathan Fensky, a big US author, talk to me
Wow,
because I
wow.
loved one of his picture books, right? And I reached out, I went, why not? It's probably going to fan mail with all the other fan mail he gets. No, he actually emailed me and went, I'd love to talk to you about my books and how I got to where I was going.
Wow.
Wow, I had Adam Wallace, a New York Times best-selling author, give me his time. Because again, same thing, like I've attracted these people who are willing to help me.
Wow.
If someone said to me in 2019, hey, in 2022, 2023, you'll be talking to a New York Times best-selling author because you're now an author, I'd be like,
I know the feeling.
no.
Yeah.
But it's happening, right? So
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like, make a change. It might just be a tiny ripple, because at the beginning, that little change of energy, that little shift, that changing of the view might not seem like something, but keep at it, and soon you'll be in a different place altogether.
Oh, yeah. It's like a quantum jump. Literally is a quantum leaping. And I was going to say, what was I going to say? I was going to have
Sorry.
and there's no, there were so many points in my head because this is all good. I was like, oh wow, that's good. That's good. That's good. I was going to say about, I think it was about the people that you're hanging around with and trying to get that energy. Oh, yes, I know what I was going to say now. Okay, it came to me. Taking risks. Just do it. Go for it. Just go for it. Don't let your mind or other outside influence you not to do it. Just do it anyway. If it makes you scared, then you're on the right path.
Yes, 100%, because you're talking to someone who wasn't making ends meet. Like, if you've got a family to feed and you've got rent to pay, I feel you, because I wasn't earning even half of what I earned working casually in home care. And like, we got this government kind of benefit for those who were affected by the COVID, right? But that didn't last forever. That was a few months. I know what that's like. I 100% know what it's like. But I don't want to sound like that person, but I'm going to be that person. But you will find a way. You've just got to surround yourself. You've got to believe you can do it. Then you've got to find those people who will support you to do it. And then you've just got to do it. Because I've been there. I have. I remember going, what I'm earning in home care is nowhere near what I was earning before. But look, I took a risk. And it's kind of worked out. Like, yes, it didn't look like it did in the brochure, because I thought I was just going to get a publishing contract with this great book and boom, that was it. No, but I took a risk, did something different, but I wouldn't change it for the world now.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't. Look where it's ended. I'm talking to
Yeah.
Gina in the
Oh,
USA.
I didn't talk to you in the U, not the UK, because it's going to rhyme with it in Australia. I always, just to be honest, whenever I watch movies, I'm like, are they from the UK? I talk to my husband, are they from the UK or from Australia? I can't tell what the accent. No, but that's Australia. I have never been, but I will go someday.
Oh, you'll love it.
It's
But yes,
beautiful.
no,
Looks beautiful back
everything you're
there.
saying, it's funny how you find your feet, and it may not work out the way you thought it would, and it may not be the path that comes out of it, but something comes out of it. And when you look back, you go, gee, I'm glad I took the risk, because if I didn't, that's the worst. Not doing it is worse than doing it and failing.
100%. Just take the risk. Okay, so this is what I always say. If you think about it, just do it right then and there. If you have the time, just do it. So, like, for example, let me just say, if I'm thinking about calling my mom, I'm like, oh yeah, I should call my mom. You know what? I'm just going to do it right then and there because I'm thinking about it. That means I have to do it for a reason. So if you just do that instead of like sit in it and think about it and think about it and think about it, when you think about it for too long, you're not going to do it because it's going to
And
be
if you have,
all, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and if you have the brain waves of always like training your brain not to do it, then that's habit, right? Like, if you've always talked and never done it, that's a habit. You got to break that habit.
And like you had said too, you reframed your mindset and you were thinking differently. And you were then, your actions were different. And that is the biggest thing, taking action. Yeah, just
Yeah, 100%.
taking
100%.
action is a big thing. I
Yeah.
think it goes thought for consciousness, it's thought, emotion, and then action. Something like that. Thinking.
Yeah, I think I've heard it before where they say a thought becomes a mood becomes a habit becomes a personal trait, and a personal trait becomes who you are. So you
Yeah.
really need to not worry, you got to watch your thoughts, because I I think I do think differently to, like, I was always a happy person. Like, I thought right up to the March 2020, I thought I had it made. I thought, because I was happy. I was that person going to work, and I loved it. And I loved my kids, and I still love my man. And that was, I was happy. But then that all got taken away, and I did something with it, which took it took a lot of training in my brain to wrap my head around it, and to think differently enough to take a risk, and to know I'm worth taking a risk, because there's a lot of times I was literally trying to compete. Like, I've got so many local authors in my area who are 15, 16 books in, professionally published, doing the Australia-wide circuit on TV. I remember so many times going, I can't compete with that. I'm like, who's got to look at me? Um, but again, it all played out to a point where I'm kind of glad it played out to how it did. And it's just the beginning. I'm not stopping now. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen in the future for me.
Right. I mean, because your higher self is already out there. It's just we got to
Mm.
catch up.
Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
it.
That's it. You just got to catch up and it'll happen because you're thinking
Yeah,
it and you're taking action. That's the
yeah,
key. That's like the trick, you know?
yeah,
That is awesome. And now you're lucky because you got to spend time with your children and they were involved in the book. So this is like a family, this is like a family project, a family book. Yeah. That is so awesome. I love that. Now,
thank you.
yes, I was going to ask you if you were to describe the essence of your book in 3 words, what would they be?
Magic, imagination, and mischief.
Oh,
Mischief, mischief, mischief.
I love that. Oh, wow. Is there any last? I know because we're almost out of time. Is there
Oh,
any
sorry.
last? No, 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 no. That's totally fine. But is there any last thoughts or anything that you would like to share to the audience? Last final thoughts, I should say.
Yeah, just find, just, I know it's easier said than done, but you will make time. You can do it. Whatever you're after, you just got to pursue it, because if you
Mhm.
don't, not pursuing it is the worst.
That is right. You're right. Because then we have to live. This is living. We're here to experience everything. That's why
Yeah.
we're here. Our spirit experiences everything. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. It's been a pleasure. And I will actually get your book because I have 2 little ones as well.
Thank you, Gina. No,
And
thank
then
you. And thank you for spreading your words of positivity and encouraging people. Like, that takes that's brave. Like, thank you for encouraging people to do all this.
oh, I love it. And that's why I wanted this podcast. It's like not about me. It's not my podcast. I say it's our podcast. This is for the listeners. This is for the guests because this is for myself. And I do all my own editing and everything. Like you said, you never thought that you would be amongst like all these best-selling authors and all these famous people. And then here you are, author and around surrounded by these wonderful people. And same thing, like I never thought I would have a podcast. But I took that
Yeah.
risk and I learned everything because I also have a massage therapy background. So I never use the computer. I always just use my phone for emails, checking, buying
Oh,
things. So
yeah.
I had to relearn, and this is 16 years worth in the massage business, and I still am actually. But to use the desktop, a Mac computer, and to do my own website and to do all these things, it took a lot of time to like learn, but I was able to do it. And I never thought I would be able to do these things ever in my life. Computer, what is a computer? People think I'm crazy, but I'm not, don't get me wrong. I'm no pro at the computer, but I know exactly what I need to know for the stuff that I'm working on. And so that's all that matters.
Yeah, no, again, and who knows what your future holds, because
Right.
you've changed it, right?
Yes, and that's what's so exciting because like I already know what my future holds because I always say it out loud, like, and I feel it though, because I have to feel it first too. I
Yeah.
want a nice small farm with my family, and I want to be surrounded by mountains, have a lake nearby. I can see everything. And just the sun, I want bees to produce honey. I want the chickens for the eggs. I want my own produce, like growing beets, vegetables, fruit. I want trees. I want a little area so I can sit underneath the tree and read a book. Like that is
Oh,
like my dream, just to be have peace with nature. Oh, I get like the cold chills when I talk about that because that's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. I just don't know.
yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Attract that.
Uh,
Attract it.
totally. Oh, Laura, thank you so much for joining me today. And yes, I can't wait to read the book. And you're going to get a 5-star review already because just by your energy and everything else. And I already know it's good.
Oh, thank you so much, Gina. And again, I'm just really grateful that you've got me here to help encourage others because really that's what it's
Yeah,
about. Thank you so much.
exactly. Yes. And I see its sun is shining. I know it was 4:45 a.m. So thank you for waking up early. I'm so sorry about that. But it was a pleasure.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you for having me.